drifted alarmingly in the betting was, Felsted in the morning continued to drift. It was late on the exchanges to lose. It was something you'd see in a Dick Francis novel, Charles Burns.
The ground is soft. It's
heavy.
It's soft on times.
It's heavy.
Okay.
And a big warm welcome to the Bar Stewards Inquiry Sunday Sermon. Where joining me as usual are my two cohorts and partners in crime, John Lang and Lorne Malvo Chris from Twitter. Good afternoon, chaps.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Lang.
What a spiffing world we've had this week in the racing fraternity, where we've hardly had any racing. Old Jack Frost has had his say, and we've been left with all-weather scrap all week.
We've got our racing Palace of London,
I'm going to say we don't quite get away with it because obviously there was Thurles in action today over at the Emerald Isle, and they had a nice little card, to be fair. Some nice races, and it kicked the day off with a 8's-on shot of Willie Mullins, where odds-on backers were probably the 8 to win one brigade was certainly heart in the mouth time at the first. Paul Townend, one of the best recoveries I've seen this season, John. Did you catch that recovery at the first?
I did. I kind of looked away. I thought he was off, to be honest.
Yeah. So did the old Betfair fraternity, because they went 12 to 1 as Townend hanging round the horse's neck. And unfortunately for those lads and lasses on the exchanges, Paul managed to stay on board. Brilliant piece of riding. And the horse, huge mare, in fact, she won extremely easily in the end. A fine physical mare, this, John. You love a big mare.
Big old unit. He loves them, doesn't he? Built for comfort, not speed.
Bella Emberg.
Yeah.
Bella Emberg. Yeah, it was roly-poly. He went to Russ Abbott.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I'm interrupting. Carry on.
No, it's fine. But the size of this mare, I think the 7 to 4 quote for the mare's chase, John, is short enough, given that she's got this habit of jumping to the right as well. But I do like the way she goes about it, in terms of she just gets out, jumps for fun, and just, you like that kind of horse. You don't want something swinging along at the back with 10 barrels full. You just want a mare to get on with it and just jump like that. But if she jumps right at the festival, would that be a worry, John?
My views on mares anywhere over the sticks. I'd rather have an eye out than bet them. I think the price is absolutely derisory at the minute. I just couldn't entertain a bet at present. I mean, see on the day, but Jesus, no.
She's certainly got an engine. I mean, it's a huge engine.
It's a clatter one as well, isn't she? I mean, you wouldn't want to hanging round her neck after the first round there.
Yeah, the jump at the fourth last and the second last was far from impressive. She looks like she could actually walk through one. It wouldn't matter. She's one of them, John, that if you walked into a bar and she was serving behind the bar, you wouldn't fight her.
You just piss her back out, wouldn't you? Really?
Absolutely. So that kicked the day off in nervy fashion for odds takers on the favourite. And then we had the big race of the day, which was the Grade 2 Horse and Jockey Hotel Chase. A fascinating affair in that Fakir Dudaris went off favourite, but was quite weak at times on the exchanges, and eventually prevailed from what only can be described as a very unlucky loser in Hort and Couleurs, who was certainly going to win before coming down.
Certain to have won, because I thought the ultimate winner was sort of getting his act together. So you felt he was certain to win. I wasn't sure. I thought he might be a bit closer.
Yeah, he was. Don't get me wrong. Fakir was very strong at the trip.
I bet, by the way, and I put everyone away. That's why you got 9 to 4. You see, it should have been even.
Well, this is it. You moan about your luck. You've done some tremendous articles on luck, and you need to now join the lucky camp. You lucky swine. Yeah.
Would we have, I'm looking around my room, and I thought, would I have all this if I was so lucky? Fucking look at ceiling.
Yeah, you're a disgrace. You're a disgrace, Christopher. A total disgrace. Hort and Couleurs for me would have won I thought he was very, I wouldn't say tenderly handled, but he wasn't off John behind Galloping des Champs the time before. The only other time Horton Colours has tried this trip over fences, he wasn't. I don't think he was that busy. I think it was all about Galloping des Champs that day. And he turned the form around with Fakir Dairies, who was well in front of him that day. So the fact that he managed to do that suggests to me he probably wasn't off.
Yeah, good.
I was disappointed with French Dynamite. Chacun Passoir put up more fight than that. Obviously, was second, was hampered at the last with the fall of Horton Colours, but again, French Dynamite was definitely beaten. Would have third had Horton Colours stood up. So I was a bit disappointed. Chacun Passoir didn't jump well. Has that gone at the game, John? Chacun?
Well, I think the three that fill the first three places, I don't think they'll have much bearing on anything that happens at the fairs myself. Given that,
don't you think the winner? You think the winner, Fakir Dairies, might improve for the 2 mile 5 at Cheltenham, a strongly run race? Kind of enjoy that, maybe, perhaps.
I think we've seen everything he's got.
He's been around a long time, even though he's 8. He seems to sort of been around.
I'm not particularly interested in it.
Yeah.
No, fair comment. So yeah, that was how we saw it. Obviously, people will have been unlucky in that. Just one more race I wanted to comment on today was the Red Mills Irish Auction Maiden Hurdle, where Belle the Lioness went off 2-7 favourite. I had an ice cream van on this mare because this is the mare I felt Rachel stopped at Thurles to let Davey win his retirement race, only he's not retired. And so I got stuck into Belle the Lioness at around between 4-11 and 2-5 on the exchanges. I felt she was a 1-6 chance. Now we've had this debate before on Barsters where people say you can't win back in odds on for this and the other. To me, I just equate a price. I priced her at 1-6. I got stuck in at 2-5, 4-11 accordingly. And I had the fright of my life in the run. She looked home and hers. She was like 1.08, turning for Herb. Then she clouted the last two really hard and then was under severe sustained pressure from the runner-up right to the line, winning by half a length. But I stood up and I beated my chest and said, I've done it.
I think you just miscalculated the price. Like, I think she should have been about 32.
Netherlands would have wanted 7-1, that, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
This is the thing about the great game. If I'd have got beat and I'd have posted it on Twitter, I'd have had lectures about, what you can imagine what Twitter would have gone like. But that's the game we're in, and I'm not frightened of an odds-on shot because I'm not frightened of any price. If I think it's value, I am backing it. So Belle the Lioness in the end got the job done, but was very, very sweaty for me. And just one other Cheltenham pointer happened on Saturday when a William Mullins bumper winner has propelled right to the top of the market for the champion bumper at 4-1 favourite. That's It's For Me, who, if you haven't watched it yet, was incredibly impressive. The problem is, what did the horse beat? It doesn't look to be a deal, but nevertheless, when you want to back an odds-on shot, that's how you want them to do it. It was never in any doubt. It was like it was supreme to watch. But again, it's a difficult one to place. But I am told that the William Mullins staff that work there have all availed themselves to some anti-purse vouchers on that. I was told just before the race, and obviously it's very high in the pecking order there. It must be because that's the one they've all backed. So it's not much fun at 4-1 though now for us laymen, is it, chaps?
Not in particular. I mean, would it run again before the Fed?
You could make a case for doing so because a lot of champion bumper winners, I've had quite a bit of track experience, so I wouldn't be surprised if that sort of came out. Like mid-February, something like that, that kind of thing. Wouldn't be surprised at all, but I don't know. I've no idea.
Well, I'm on at 10, so see, I'm all greened out here. Easy old game, this, isn't it? I don't know why we keep moaning. Just put it down and pick it up.
You're having a disgraceful episode.
I
absolutely disgraceful.
It's quite poor.
You've backed one that was beat and a fall helped you out, and now you're crowing about a 10-1 anti-purse voucher. for the now bumper favourite. You have complete disgrace. He's tired. Chris on this episode, he's like one of those, where you sat in a room and someone's farting really bad, but no one's owning up. So you're staring around and you're looking, who's this? But the farts. This is what Chris is doing. He's stinking the place out.
Shit, yeah. I mean, got cut me a bit of slack. I can't normally pick my nose, so let me have this one to grow.
I shall indeed, because I've seen you in the last sort of year or so in terms of look wise, and I think you've had a really bad luck bastard kind of year.
Not many. For all sorts of reasons, it's just relentless. So yeah, I mean. Let's hope it retains 4 legs and at least turns up. But I agree, it's a strange old race, that Champion Bumper. And I know he's won it the last few years, but you do get some odd results. So I'd like to see it run again because, as you say, a couple of runs, a little bit more experience, let it grow up a bit in the head. And I think that's probably the best way. But if Willie Mullins is listening, that's what he should do.
You'd start to get excited if it beat a real quality horse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like with the same sort of ease. That's when you start to get really excited about it.
Yeah.
But it obviously looks a lot of ability for the dreadful moneers that own the horse. Anyway, on to the dreadful subject of affordability. Now, this is interesting because we, as bar stewards, have championed this subject for a long, long time now. And it's interesting to see it gather media attention in quite a big way, really. It's appearing on some mainstream news. It's appearing in the Racing Post a hell of a lot more. Nick Luck today had the old dog Harry Finlay on a very entertaining show. Was Nick Luck's show this morning, and discussing the prospect, the evil prospect of affordability checks headed into our game, where it's going to cut funding for the levy and basically turn British horse racing into greyhound racing overnight, chaps. Now, what are we making of this late sort of surge from the media when possibly most policies have now been decided and are certainly in play by the bookmakers? Yeah. What are we thinking?
Well, I think the media is sort of getting on top of it now because they're finally realising it's probably going to cost them a few jobs.
Yeah, you're right, John. I mean, I have to say, I mean, I've been keeping an eye on this, chaps, and and my overriding sentiment is one of frustration and anger, because without blowing our trumpet, I mean, who the fuck are we? We have been talking about this, as Lee says, for probably the last 12 months. And, as you say, the policy's probably drafted, which makes you wonder who they consulted in drafting the policy and why weren't these voices heard sort of 12 months ago when it was in contemplation. The ship sailed. It's not just sailed, it's fucking sunk. I mean, it's so fundamental that a drop in betting revenue and the impact it will have on the funding and future of the sport. I'm stunned that people are going, fucking hell, we didn't realise that. Well, I'm not in the industry and I'm just an idiot layman, but I understood it 12 months ago. But it goes back to the point that we make rather uncharitably, is that no one said fuck all while they were getting on at the top price and getting paid on the button. And all the old plebs, they can go and screw themselves. Who cares what the pun? But now they're being directly affected, then it's a problem. But it's too late, I think, far too late, because it's probably drafted by now, isn't it?
That's what I'm told on the grapevine.
Yeah.
Apparently there's a meeting on Wednesday with the gambling minister and several stakeholders in the piece, with together some parliamentary concerns regarding these affordability checks. And it could be the last hurrah in terms of affecting the white paper, which I'm told is due out early February. And if that's the case, then the media intervention now looks a little bit, we've had a Racing TV poll on Twitter that you can fill in. Again, what good will that do? At this stage of the piece, this should have been out a lot earlier, getting punters' thoughts en masse. And, it's such a shame it was brought out this late.
You might as well send Megan a dick pic for all the good.
Well, I have. And I've got a red receipt, but no reply. So I'm not sure what that's about. But I think in the Mottershead article, I think it was his article, and apologies if it isn't, he does reference a point that we've made, is that, and as John has sort of banged on about for a long time is that gambling, and the reason why a lot of people follow the sport is because they have a bet. And racing has sort of tried to marginalise punters as sort of as an undesirable element in the sport. So they focus their PR activity on pints, piss ups, bouncy castles, etc. And this is what you get, because if you send those messages to government saying, "Oh, racing's all about a fun family day out, not so much about gambling," this is what you get. And unfortunately, I just think it's too late. I can't see how there has to be a massive U-turn, I think, for it to change. And I can't see it myself.
Yeah, I agree with just about everything you've said there. And what's also interesting, what you've said there, in terms of what racing, ITV are guilty in this as well.
Yeah.
How they've steered people into booze and not the product is, for me, beyond belief. Because what we saw at Lingfield this weekend, it was unfortunate they couldn't get the racing on today. I felt for Lingfield a little bit. That's another story in a bit we'll come on to. But one of the bookmakers there described the action on Saturday as like absolutely derisory. He said the biggest bet he took all day was £300. It was full of boozers, young ones that weren't interested in racing, just literally there because it was cheap. So it was cheap to get in, and it was like basically a cheap boozer. And, this is where I think racing has really got the shotgun out and took the left trainer off and let the bullets fly, because they've been doing this for a long time. They've been selling theme nights, fun fairs at Newbury that have thankfully cost them money. I mean, that's terrible of me to say that, isn't it? I'm thankful that Newbury Racecourse did their bollocks.
But that's all fine, isn't it? All these fun nights, but it's not a replacement for the core element, which is the punters who fund the sport. You can have as many concerts as you want, many fucking madness events, Newmarket, great, but they've done that at the expense of their core customer, and they wonder why their core customer either has deserted the sport or gone underground to unregulated offshore sites. No shit. Yeah. I mean, it was a statement of the obvious, I thought, but, whatever.
This is the business performance that Mark Johnston's ice cream parlour gets you, isn't it?
Very much. Yeah, stop me and buy one. Yeah, I'll have a flake in that.
Johnston Ellie's, John.
Johnston Ellie's. Tutti frutti, what a cutie, eh?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm ranting a bit, but it just makes me so angry that all these points that people are saying, oh, yeah, these are good points. We've been saying that for a long time. And, not just us, but loads of people who are, not part of the sort of the inner circle of racing are just, either punters or part owners, etc. They've all been forgotten about in favour of these grand marketing schemes, very few of which we've seen any figures as to whether they're successful or not. And guess what? Betting revenues drop. That's going to happen if you alienate your core customer. If you're told that gambling is a bad thing, people are going to think, well, fuck that. I'm not having a bet if I have to send in my friend's bank statement to justify a 25 quid transfer, as I think one gentleman said in an earlier article. Who's going to do that? It's ludicrous.
I mean, fair play to Banksy. I mean, he's been using his platform for 12 months banging the drum about it as well.
Absolutely. But these voices have not been listened to because of racing's inherently hierarchical structure. It is a feudal system. If you haven't got a double-barreled name, they're not going to listen, and that's the problem. They've listened to all these professional marketeers and idiots at the BHA, etc. This falls at the door of the BHA. Why have they not been lobbying government, vociferously? Why have they not been putting up punter champions and saying it is a safe sport? Yes, there are problem gamblers. Yes, bookmakers can and should do more to identify problem gamblers. But 99% of people who enjoy the sport have a bet and do so safely without jeopardising, their finance or their mental health. And no one said that.
Absolutely.
All gamblers are degenerates, and this is what you've got. And I think it's too late, sadly.
Yeah, no, I completely concur with that. Now, in terms of the Nick Luck programme this morning, I was particularly pleased to see Harry Finlay on there. And whilst Harry Finlay might not be everyone's cup of tea, but let's get one thing straight here. He's been missed in racing for an actual voice for the punter, for the gambler, for the like Big Mac's missed. It was refreshing to hear what he's up to. Obviously, he's bought a ground track in Ireland, Lifford.
Yep.
And in partnership with Paul Byrne, Dick Alexander, the trainer, and a few others, they really have sort of like gone to town on this with the business ethos plan of 10% turt. Now, what a brilliant plan, because that could totally revitalise the ground industry and the horse racing industry to boot, because the margins are less. It gives punters a fairer deal. And I think this is brilliant. However, whilst he made some really tremendous points on the business model, it will work in Ireland. Ireland are marketing the sport a different way to what we do. Apparently, there's these quantum terminals now where you could put these in all pubs. So you could sit in a pub in Ireland and basically go to the bar, type in your bet with your card, and you can have a bet on your horse race at the 10% turt. That's the future business model, but it's actually 12.5%, because obviously the government will get some, the racing game will get some, everyone gets a piece of the pie, which is one of our former guests on the show, trainer Stuart Williams. He's a vocal advocate on funding of the sport. Why certain countries like Australia, France can have tremendous prize money, yet we can't. We have, derisory. And we've discussed this subject many times on the show, and we know why. It's big corp that are ruining it and sending it down a path, a very dark path. But the sad thing here, and the hole in the argument for Finley's sort of utopia, if you like, is the fact that we've got a turt account, myself and my wife, and can't really, but we've deposited about £1,000, I think. So we've only got like another 500 quid to deposit on the turt account, the turt betting account, pool account, before we be subject to affordability checks. So who's gonna do that? Like, so why? There's no time limit on that either. So once we deposit another 500, that's it. No more turt betting, and so on and so on. It's doomed to fail under the current guise of affordability. This is why affordability needs to be segregated to skill and chance. Skilled betting equals no affordability checks and no invasion of privacy in terms of your finances. You're allowed to, basically, if you state to a bookmaker, I want to stake 100,000 a year. If I go above that, then ban me. Ban me across the board if I've lost 100,000, right? You should be able to state that as a mark of personal responsibility. However, as we know, the slot machines, online slots and casinos are a different kettle of fish. They need to be segregated by the DCMS as games of luck, pot luck, chance. You can't beat the system, but you might get lucky, right? But you can get into lots of trouble, which most people do, naturally, because it's very addictive, provides the dopamine effect that they require, and they get into a lot of trouble. Now, this is common sense. This is not me talking idiocy. This is common sense. Racing and sports betting should be completely left alone to get on with what it is, which is basically you're trying to back a winner that's better, got a better chance than the odds suggest. However, you can't do that on a slot machine. You press play, and you have no control over the value of your next spin whatsoever. So let's get DCMS. If ministers are listening to this, and also anybody else, stakeholders in the game, if you don't want to save British racing, then go ahead with affordability checks in British racing and see where it's going to get you, because I'll tell you where it's going now. Now, after timing, it will lead to the black market. People will get fed up. They're not going to produce documents. They're not going to let people look through the banks. They don't want to know. It's that simple. So make the massive mistake of falling for that, and British racing will be ground racing within 5 years as soon as that's implemented.
I agree with you. And just to chime into your very early point about how racing misses people like Big Mac and Findlay. Findlay was effectively forced out the sport, wasn't he? But by the same people we criticise. He kind of up sticks and left. I think he went to Australia for a while, etc. He was forced out because his face didn't fit. Didn't matter the bloke owned a Gold Cup winner or anything like that. He was never going to be part of the establishment. It was never going to be accepted. And so he thought, well, bollocks to it then. If you don't want my money, you don't want my custom, I'm off. So that speaks to everything we've said previously about how racing is not a welcoming sport if you aren't part of the existing hierarchy. And that's the problem. And as regards the Irish venture, you're right, in the sense that I hope it succeeds. But culturally, gambling and betting are much more woven into the culture of Irish society. It's a much bigger thing. Gambling isn't looked down on in the same way that it is in this country. And it's the BHA and all those who claim to stand up for the sport have not resisted the antis, whenever they've gone on television, there's never been a sort of a punter spokesman in any of these articles or interviews I've seen with the likes of Shilton and Paul Merson and various other people that have screwed up their lives through betting. There's never been a counter view. And if you keep nailing that, everyone, I mean, I spoke to someone the other day who isn't a punter, and he sort of said, oh, yeah, gambling's bad, isn't it? You're all addicts. So I said, do you like a drink? Oh, yeah. I said, are you an alcoholic? He said, well, of course I'm not an alcoholic. I said, so what's the difference between me having an occasional bet, 5 bets a day, smashing up the house, and you having a couple of glasses of wine after work? And there's, never thought of it like that. Well, why not? Because that's the narrative that people are being fed. And now, as we know with masks and vaccines, won't get onto that, that's the prevailing narrative. People go, all right, then it must be true because the government have told me. And BHA and the Racing Post and all those people that have ridden the gravy train for the last fucking 5 years, getting on with 365 as much as they want, they should bear responsibility for this if this comes to fruition as we expect. It's their fault, nobody else's.
Absolutely, Chris. John, coming to you regarding the BHA. This is something that our sports governing body could have done a hell of a lot more with, and certainly fought the case for a long time in terms of, with the government, etc., on affordability. They've done literally next to nothing. And I know this because I speak to parliamentary insiders on this. They have done literally next to nothing.
A lot of them would describe themselves as custodians of the sport. And in all honesty, they absolutely disgust me, because you literally could have sat 6 apes around the table and got more active than what you get from these people. It's absolutely appalling the way they've conducted themselves through this whole sorry episode. Harrington should resign over this.
It is. I don't think people realise, if this does come in to odd for horse racing and sports betting, that the game itself is finished. There's no way around it. We all have to bet with unregulated bookmakers after this, because you're going to hit in the inevitability of gambling. Like Harry Finlay says, Harry Finlay's hit rock bottom about 4 or 5 times. He's got his own Gold Cup winners. He's own Chiquita Banana, the tremendous ground of the sort of, was it 90s, early 1990s. And the man has lived a life that many would want to lead, but he's also bounced off rock bottom several times when things have gone completely wrong. Now, that's what he says, that the ministers, the government, the antis, the people that want it all banned and prohibitionist, and they don't understand the mindset of the gambler. They have got no clue that he'd rather have his last 500 on an even money shot in the last at Chelmsford to get out of the day than spend that 500 on shopping. Yeah. It literally is that. It's and that doesn't make you a degenerate. It makes it, honestly,
so what if it does make you a degenerate? So what? I mean,
exactly.
Okay, fine. People fuck their
lives.
Some
of the best people I know are absolutely degenerates.
Yeah. So what? If that's your choice and you want to piss your life away betting, drinking, snorting lines of coke and screwing hookers, then fine.
Sounds fantastic.
Live the dream.
There's not much of a downside to that, Chris.
Oh, well, yeah, exactly. And the rest of the money you can waste, can't you, really?
Shopping.
That's the problem. If that's what you want to do and you're not hurting anybody, then fine. But, I agree that if you are in Stuck, there should be places where you can reach out to and say, look, I'm in a bit of problems here, help me. And that's absolutely fine. As long as those facilities are available, then I don't see a problem with someone wanting to piss their life away. It's their choice. I think it did.
But anyway, we'll move on to Ireland now. And Comiscus, friend of the show, obviously he's got pictures over there. And I love following his sort of like his Twitter account in terms of his blogs on how he does on a day and stuff like that. But he's a shrewd chap. He's made it pay. Like you say, Chris. He's had luck at the right points in his life. And anyone that hasn't read Chris's articles, please go to pastures.co.uk because there's more coming as well. And it's really interesting about luck and how you get in positions. But Comiscus is shrewd anyway. And he's got his pictures on, and he can't speak highly enough of the Irish racing culture and what Irish racecourses are actually doing. Now, fair kudos to Lingfield for putting on that winter millions deal for punters to come through the doors. However, the difference between Britain and Ireland is that you do a cheap deal to get in a track, and it's drinkers that come rather than punters, which is how we've shaped the British game. However, you put deals on in Ireland, like a cheap entry and a free burger and a tote bet, and all of a sudden they get good crowds and bettors there, if you like. That's the difference with the culture in Ireland, which you can see Harry Finlay's over there with his track. Comiscus has gone over there with his racing pictures, and the reason Comiscus has done that because he knows that doing it over here is just it ain't going to work. It's in Ireland, people want to bet.
Exactly right. They want to have a bet. So you see, betting isn't sort of frowned upon over there, and it is here. That's the problem.
I mean, John, another thing, British racecourses, what do you think they'll actually do this year? Will they continue to rip punters off? Or will they look at the Irish and think, do you know what?
They won't look at the Irish because you can't learn these people anything. If they learned anything, they wouldn't still be able to straighten people like that to do the marketing. And we still wouldn't be having things like the racing league that nobody's interested in. They'd be promoting the sport rather than the fucking gin drinking and the Giacomo suits and the sockless attendance in the members and talking to a load of drunks before the big race, seeing what the fans think. The media, as in ITV racing, as it is now, are ruining the game with the way they're presenting it because they don't want anybody talking about betting. And unless that changes significantly, we're on the road to ruin. It's as simple as that. It is going to be Mark Johnston's ice cream parlour.
Johnston Ellie's, the old Neapolitano.
Maybe that's why he's packed in. Maybe he got his sell a wagon.
He's gone like Fred Flintoff, got a chip shop van, didn't he? And went around the UK after finishing.
What he's done? I bet he's got a freezer in the fucking Cessna, and he's gonna fly in and give everybody a cornetto.
99 flake.
It'd be like the Scottish Father Christmas.
I'll go on to some fun now. Then the next topic's a bit more serious, but no, I'll shelve that because I want to talk about the shirt. A real funny piece this week I saw on Twitter from a brilliant racing account called Racing Creeps, and obviously tracks down all the blokes that message the women and stuff like that. And this was absolutely brilliant. So it was the Longines Award for the Baid and all the big awards ceremony. Francesca Camani, John, was hosting. But yes, so the shirt walks up. He was clearly sozzled. And he walks up and so Francesca gives the lovely ensemble of Baid and what a horse he is, this that, et cetera, and then the shirt chimes up with, "Well, if only Flightline had seen you in your PJs in Australia, maybe that'd have put him off, and we'd have been the best horse." It was absolutely amazing telly. But what I want to ask you, John, is what do you think Maureen's thinking of this?
I think Maureen's pretty laid back by now, isn't she? I mean, she knows what she's in for.
Yeah.
I mean, we've only seen glimpses of the wardrobe. She knows exactly how many of them shirts are in that wardrobe.
Yeah.
So she knows what she's dealing with. She's a show cookie, Maureen. She'll hang on in there, I think.
The bastards have seen this a long way off, haven't we, with the old shirt at Epsom Racecourse.
It'll be like the old, remember the handicap cartoons? Remember those?
Yeah.
John? Yeah, exactly. He'll be coming home with should be standing by the door with a rolling pin, wouldn't they? I think she probably knows by now what she's married. So yeah, but that's a good account there. So I never ever comment on any woman ever because you're going to end up on that, I think.
Yeah, it stopped me as well. Good old Racing Creeps. There we go.
I private message CJ now. I don't say anything publicly.
No, that's it. Else you'll be on there, John. You'll be highlighted in shame.
Yeah.
But yes, that was a fun topic. going on to something more serious now, which was obviously the banning of former professional jockey Danny Brock for 15 years. It's like a life sentence for most.
Yeah.
And it was double the normal BHA penalty for discrepancies and misdemeanors of basically cheating and laying horses to lose on the betting exchanges.
Massive blow to Danny Brock fans worldwide, I would have thought.
What happened was, in a nutshell, if you haven't caught up with this case, was that Danny Brock and associates, the McBrides, Charlie McBride, racehorse trainer, etc., and son, they were basically made a massive deposit of £7,200 on the day and backed the other horse in a 2-runner race.
Was it the trainer, Lee, or was it the trainer's son?
It was a trainer and trainer's son that was involved. I'm not sure if it was Sean McBride's account or Charlie McBride,
right?
But it doesn't make that quite clear. But basically, they're all involved apparently. And Danny Brock has if you watch the Samovar, it's a horse called Samovar in a 2-runner race against Tricky Dicky quite a few years ago. Tricky Dicky was very heavily backed, I think, from about 10 to 11 into 2 to 5. It was 10 to 11 each or two in a match. Danny Brock missed the break about 10 and gave it a light ride. Now, the thing that strikes me about this case, chaps, is that looking at the BHA's case, it looked quite flimsy to me because the horse Samovar in question had like, in its career, it's had like 6 tickets for being slowly away. So in other words, it's had 6 tickets to go in the stalls last because it doesn't like the stalls, and it's been slowly away many times. Why didn't they? Must have been skinned, because I think if they'd have got a barrister, I don't think they'd have beaten a barrister on this. I think a barrister would have shot the BHA down on this sort of flimsy. Yes, it was a record bet of £7,200 on one of the McBride account, whether it was Sean or Charlie, I don't know. But it was a big bet. Apparently, they weren't betting that big, and then it was £7,200 all on Tricky Dicky. Whilst it's but again, to prove it beyond all reasonable doubt, a barrister would sincerely argue that the horse basically is a rat at the stalls and difficult out the traps. And there's video evidence of this. So I think it's quite difficult to make it stick 100%. I'm quite surprised that I would presume they probably not got the money to do this, which is, again, the BHA seem to be experts at attacking the small people, don't they? I'm not saying Danny Brock's a saint, by the way, because the ground board have taken away his training license. He went into ground racing training, and so I'm not saying he's a saint, because he's obviously very bent. But that's what I think. I think they're guilty.
I feel a bit sorry for him when I read that give the fella a break. There's no impact on all they do is got to keep an eye on him. But the guy's got to earn a living, and what he did was wrong. But as you say, it was a case that with good legal counsel, if they had John Kelsey Fry up there defending him, I dare say they'd have walked. But as you say, down to funding, so it does seem a bit like kicking a puppy, doesn't it? That they had no representation, and the result was pretty much preordained. I think
you'd say one of these a month, wouldn't you, in a 5 furlong sprint, really?
Yeah, exactly.
Where the duck racers that come out the stalls after missing it, and the race is over. I mean, from there on in, it doesn't matter what he does. No. He's finished. The race is done. I mean, if that's the race, I think he's been very hard done by to get 15 years for that. And as you say, I think if there'd been legal representation, I think there'd have been a hell of a stink about it.
Yeah.
For me, it comes down to, again, we talk about classist, and I think that's it. Whilst Danny Brock's probably a lying, cheating, thieving, whatever, it comes down to the fact that if you'd have been somebody high up in the echelons of the sport, they'd have probably felt your collar and not made it public because they don't want embarrassment for the sport in the papers. Or B, if they know you could present them with a legal challenge and a big legal bill, they don't want that either. The BHA don't want to have to pay your legal costs. So if they're wrong, so it comes down again to classist on this. I'm not saying Danny Brock is not guilty, because I think he is. I think if you watch the ride, it was embarrassing. But that's the mistake he's made.
The ride only counts for the first 5 seconds of the race.
Yeah.
Anything So that's irrelevant because the horse is paid.
Oh yeah.
You know,
But
if one did that with Leicester Piggott on, it would have got beat 40 lengths because Leicester wouldn't have even moved.
No, I mean,
No.
he'd have just gone into the stewards and he'd have said, "My chance is gone." So what's the point?
Yeah.
What's the point in beating it up? It's never going to win. I mean, we're not going to say it here, but we've had conversations, haven't we, off air in the past about certain very high-profile trainers across the water and in the UK that, you know, are asking owners to get them a few quid out of something that's not off a yard. But they are too big and too expensive to prosecute. So, you know, the Danny Brock thing does smack of, you know, clipping the ear of the little man, really.
And the poor chap's lost his ground trainer's license now, as the obviously banned from making a living there as well. There's one funny story. I've got a friend of mine that had a dog with him, just to add fuel to the fire. His dog, he wasn't told. His dog was back from 4-1 to 5-4. It pissed up, and he got no mention to back it.
That's par for the course for fucking dogs. I mean, they just don't put you in it. There's only 2 trainers I've ever had dogs with that told you properly before that they told all their punters, but the rest will try and turn you over. So no change there. Give him 20 years, I say, fuck him.
Yeah, fuck him. Absolutely. Yeah. Right. So moving on. Another rumour here. Well, it's not a rumour. I know it's fact. Old Lids, Lydia Hislop, Steve Mellish. They've had a massive bust up. You won't see them together on a racing TV production anytime soon. It literally is not very good. What do you think? I mean, we can't say what's happened there because I actually don't know. I don't know the in bits. John, do you reckon like old Steve's like had his bollocks felt by old Lids there?
I think this is bogus myself. I think that. I don't think this is right. I think we'll see them together very soon on the telly.
You reckon?
Yeah, I do. I think they worked together for years. They're very professional. I think somebody's pulling the chain with this one myself.
Interesting. Oh, I'm gonna stick by it. So I'm saying they're not. I'll have you a side bet then, right? I'll give you right. We'll have an even 50, me and you.
Yeah.
Right. I say Mellish. What's that?
Before Cheltenham, the same on the screen again.
So I'm saying Mellish won't appear on the same programme, around Lydia, stud with Lydia, that kind of thing.
I think they're above all that sort of nonsense. I'll definitely go 50 there.
Lovely. We've got a bar stewards bet. We love this. We love it. Franks loves trying to take my pants down. He's backing himself for naps tables on Friday. He's doing it in though at minute, which is good. But John's trying to have my pants down now with a bet on Hislop and Mellish. So who's going to win that one? It'll be competitive between me and John for the 50 notes. BHA, John, we'll go back to them.
One thing, it'll keep me glued to racing TV while the shit jumps is on.
In fact, listeners, you could I want you to show footage because we can't watch every single who's on every day. It's not possible. So yeah, Hislop Mellish. That's the bet. Let us know if Hislop and Mellish appear on the same screen and whether I'll be sending 50 notes up to Posh Martin in Middlesbrough.
I mean, we've been in their company.
Oh, I know, yeah.
And you know, I mean, to me that'd be like me saying, "Well, I'm not going on Barskills anymore when Lee Casey's on."
Not a bad idea, though. To be fair.
Well, not a bad idea in principle.
Other thing is as well, John. If there has been a spat and it ain't that bad or whatever, right? Lydia likes you better than me, so it'd be like she'd definitely screw me for the 50 and think, So I might be.
Needless to say, there's a pony in it for Lydia if she bites the bullet.
You'd love this. You'd absolutely love it. Good sport, that. So back to the BHA, John, because we love talking about the BHA. It's one of our favourite subjects. And there's a BBC article basically loading the antis with more ammo, saying that 7% would have broken the whip rules in the first week of sort of trials, if you like, with the shoulder height being the main culprit. Now, didn't we say on the pod that once you start going numbers, it gives the anti-mob something to measure it by?
Do you know what? I'm casting my mind. I can't remember the last time the BHA did anything that I fucking agree with. You know, I genuinely can't. I mean, every Everything they do is just shit, isn't it?
It is.
Everything. Everything they do. If they weren't there, the sport would be better.
Yeah.
You know,
There's no governing body, but the sport's better.
It wouldn't be worse.
If aliens abducted the fucking lot of them, there was nothing going on at High Holborn, this sport would be in better nick. You know, it's unbelievable, isn't it? You know, I mean, really, that they bring these cretins in that start with we've got this new pro cush and it doesn't hurt. So what we're going to do with that, we're going to limit the amount of times you can hit them with this thing that doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
Absolute cretins. They're pandering to people that want racing stopped, and they're making such a mess of everything. It's beyond belief. Whip rules should be out the window anyway. If you're half competent stewards, they can spot a horse being abused any day of the week, you know?
Yeah.
You still see horses being hit in the soft part of the belly and nothing done. And incompetence. I mean, the whip in the backhand roll was going to result in loads of horses being hit in the belly, you know? And that would have been desperate if that had gone through. I mean, thank Christ for the likes of Ryan Moore arguing the case there, because if normal race raiders had argued the case, they wouldn't have listened to it. So, but this is just, talk about painting yourself into a corner. The BHA are just experts at it. And they make me sick. Really, they do. They just make me sick.
Yeah, it is pandering to the antis, because that's the only article I've seen on the BBC regarding racing of late, and nothing on affordability checks, nothing on that. Just basically about whip and the antis with the whips. It's playing into their hands. Okay, we're going to move on to some questions to finish the show, because obviously you're part of the show and brilliant with your questions on Twitter and various sources. So Bidders has been on. He said, do you think there's a correlation between the British media's ambivalence to Ryan Moore compared to overseas interviewers and the banality of their questions over here? Is that why Ryan's sort of like just not willing to do good interviews, Chris? Or is that a bit of Ryan Moore's personality as well?
Oh, I think it's personality, isn't it? He's quite a doer sort of character. So I think it's more to do with the fact he's just not that sort of person, is he? He just doesn't sort of warm to people, and you know, he's not a natural interviewer, is he?
I've seen him abroad though. When he's rode in the US, he just seems a lot more forthcoming to American.
But bear in mind though, Lee, when he's getting interviewed abroad, it's invariably after a Group 1 race.
It's true, yeah, that's true, yeah.
You know, which is going to be much more interesting for him to talk about. You know, I mean, if he's just got off one at Bath and poor old Bob Cooper shoving a mic under his nose, he's not going to be as forthcoming, is he? You know what I mean?
It's what the problem is, I think, with the interviewers. So it's Ryan Moore, so they want to try and get him to talk. And like you just said, John, he's won a 0-70 at Bath. Yeah. On this journeyman horse that, you know, that he's decided to ride because he's there for the day. The interviewer wants Ryan Moore to expand on it and say, "Ooh, you know,
yeah,
yeah.
might win another 0-70." Yeah. I mean, yeah, he's that sort of bloke, though, isn't he? I have seen him in the States interviewing. You're right, he is a little bit more forthcoming, but he's never going to be a natural interviewee, is he?
And
no, he's
in addition to it being a Group 1 as well. He's riding in a foreign land, so I mean, he's not going to want to come over as an obnoxious twat, is he, when he goes to America?
No, quite.
You know, I mean, they're not shy to have a pop at our jockeys, are they? So I mean, he's going to make it easier for himself.
Right. So another person in your life, John, Sir Michael Stout. So Ryan would have been perfect for Stout, wouldn't he?
I don't know, really. I mean, he's the least controversial jockey that Michael Stout's had, I would have said.
But what I'm trying to say is that in terms of personalities, Stout is quite tricky to interview. Like, Stout will have the music.
You know, I mean, Steve Mellish and Richie Persad got plenty out of him. And
they did.
You know, because they didn't ask idiotic questions. You know, you get the likes of Matt Chapman, and he's bound to clam up, isn't he? You know, but I thought that Steve Mellish and Richie Persad thing was absolutely excellent. Probably the most open he's been on an interview.
Yeah. Nah. Thanks for that question, Bidders. Right, so PB's been on. is it time for a revamp with how we handicap ratings, with ratings going up and up and up and up every time you've won one, and then coming down a lot slower after you've won one? Is it time for a change, John?
You're definitely getting a bit giddy with these ratings, because I'm noticing, I'm like reviewing a lot of my figures now from last year. I can't remember a year when there's been such a disparity between my ratings and what the BHA are sticking on these horses. I mean, there's a lot of races this year where I haven't put anything up for winning, and I've thought them barely at the rating. I mean, there's a lot of races where I've even knocked them down a point or two when they've won a race. Normally, I'd say I've probably erred on the side of caution with children, maybe an average of £5. I think that average is getting nearer to 8, possibly 10 in a lot of cases now. You know, I'm closer at maybe the Group 1 end, you know, but I'm still well under with a lot of them. I might be wrong, but in my opinion, the BHA handicappers get a bit giddy.
Yeah, I mean, most of them are ex-time form, aren't they? A lot of them end up, you know, going from time form to end up working handicapping for the BHA, which I ain't got an objection to, but I don't understand why they're asking George Bowie to have 4 runs, because if I was in charge of handicapping, say, 3-year-olds then or 2 or you know, it's quite easy for me. If I saw a trainer deliberately sort of like knock one out of the back for 3 runs and just make minimal effort, I'd just slap about another 20 onto the actual mark. So
I wouldn't be shy doing that as well. No.
Yeah, I don't understand why they're doing it by weights and measures, because as we know, you could, like you've said, you could have an horse with an easy lead that just like one at kills that just runs around Beverley, nothing taking it on.
Yeah.
Wins by 3 lengths, hard held, because Notes took it on, and it'll go up like £10 or £12, and it's like, well, why have you put that £10 or £12? It's had an easy lead, and it's, I just don't think this weights and measures things don't make any sense, because you'll have horses in 4th place that are 10 lengths the best. I mean, look at Solcombe at Goodwood, you know, Solcombe at Goodwood, and as I said, it ends up going £1. It wanted to go £12. This is where dynamic handicapping, I'd bring it in, because it should be an opinion of the handicapper that, put it this way, they do it over jumps. If an horse is like going well 2 out and it comes down, they'll still put it up 6 because they think it's going to win. So why can't you do that then for a horse that finishes 4th in a flat handicap that's, you know, maybe desperately unlucky, would have won half the track had it got through. And this is where I think it's just shit, really. It's amateur. That's where dynamic handicapping wins the day. So in answer to the question, I stand on, like you said, John, there's these jumps races, 3-runner race, they'll put it up £5 for like beating crap. And
it's a jumping now when you turned it in 5 out, you know.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, I mean, wouldn't it be great to put a winner down in the weights?
I did it a lot last year. A lot.
Yeah. 150.
That needs to come down a bit for that.
Yeah. And one final question from Gravy Train Steve. Not Gravy Train Graham. He's not a fan of the show. As off the wall as you like, I can remember more competitive Cathcarts than some of these upcoming festival races. Something needs to change. Isn't that the fact, though, that, John, there's too many races now at the festival, like we've always said? It's, you know, it makes it less competitive.
Is this about anti-post, lightening the anti-post market up?
Yeah.
Well, you can't now unless you knock the festival back to 3 days ago, because they've all got too many options. The boaties and all this. The boaties are pricing it up really as their event, and they're nearly all going non-running or bet now, and any anti-post perks are just long gone, aren't they? You know, to liven it up, you'd have to do away with these extra races, probably get rid of everything that's for mares, and which would just be personal preference, obviously. Then you might get some semblance of anti-post books again. But until you do something like that, with what we're stuck with the programme, It's fucking horrible, isn't it, really?
It's rubbish, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're just going to end up with like lots of odds-on shots and lots of 5-4 shots in these races at the festival. There's going to be lots of short prices. Obviously not the handicaps, but
it's so bland now. I think we could almost risk contacting a York pub and putting on a Bar Stewards Festival preview night. And we could sit there and trot out a few bland platitudes and cliches for a couple of hours and maybe trouser a bit of betting money and
get pissed. Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Listeners, do you want a Bar Stewards Cheltenham podcast? Interested in a pub? That'd be interesting. Live audience. Anyway, right. What can go wrong with that? Right. Anyway, on to this week.
It's quite live on it.
What can go wrong with me pissed live on air? Nothing. Anyway, on to this week. It's the normal Friday show coming up, and me, John and Chris will be back next Sunday with more shenanigans and tales of the game and disasters of the game and just the BHA, everything that we're going to...
Keep sending your rocking theme tunes in as well.
Absolutely, because we're going to do the show. We're going to do the show this week, so make sure you send in your best racing tunes on Twitter that you like to listen to get you in the mood for the races, or when you've done your bollocks and you're sat in a dark room, that kind of thing. We like all sorts of shit like that. So send us that in, and your tune might make the show. That's all from me, John and Chris. Bye for now.